Welcome to Run With Purpose. This is episode number 134. And for those of you that are new to the show, my name is Flores, and I'm so very glad that you found this podcast. Would love if you would subscribe. And as always, you can reach out to me on all the socials everywhere at flores.run. Hope you are having an amazing week so far. It's been a little while since I've gotten to share this time with you in this space, but I'm glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're checking in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're doing it, videos on YouTube. Very much appreciate you checking in. Things have been nuts. It's been one of those where our summer was really crazy into a busy fall. All great things, all just great time spending with Kayla. We were traveling. We've been doing a lot of things. Did the Chicago Marathon, which was a lot of fun. I'll kind of talk a little bit about that through this episode as well. Just some thoughts that I had around it and some of the things that went there. But yeah, it's been a journey the last few months. It's been fantastic though. 50 states post. I finally finished that recap for the 50 states. So if you didn't check that out, you can check it on my website, flores.run, where I kind of just did a highlight of the entire journey. It took me almost a year to write that post. I released it on the year anniversary. I think it was like January, first week of January, last week of December is when I really started to go, all right, let's try to get this down. Let's try to figure out what this journey is. And I think I even wrote it in the post. I just said, start writing here. And that's basically where it stood for 9 months. And yeah, it was tough to kind of just highlight that journey and everything that went on during it and the feelings and the emotions and the people and just everything there. So I tried to wrap that up. Thanks for those that showed love on that post and reading through that. But yeah, it's still crazy to reflect on that entire journey and then going back and running Chicago again, having this like fresh perspective, right? Like over about a year to the date that I hadn't run a race and everything that went into the training and everything went there of just like this reminder of, hey, this is a challenging thing. Running marathons aren't easy. And I think I got into this flow that it felt so easy in a way, like not easy that I didn't put myself through things, but because I was continuously doing it, it didn't feel that discomfort as much as I did in this past year of getting back out there going, oh crap, there is a little bit to this. And it does take a decent amount of discipline and effort and focus to get across that marathon finish line. It just gave me a new respect for running. And now we're just playing the waiting game to try to get into Tokyo or London. I've got some last minute lotteries coming in for the Abbott World Majors. They just came out with saying that Sydney's going to be next year. Sydney will be the 7th star up on that journey. So going to have to register for that one as well. Kayla's like, really? I thought we were just going to have the 2. And I'm like, hey, they keep adding them. It's not my fault, just kidding. But yeah, things have been good. Started getting into DJ and music production. My buddy John, he does some DJ stuff on the side, and he's the one that I go to festivals and stuff with. And he started getting me into some of the stuff he was doing. I was like, this would be pretty cool to produce some music. And then I started getting into the actual playing aspect. So who knows where that'll go. It's been a fun avenue just to kind of do some of that and have some of that. I'll have a Twitch channel where I'll do some streaming and stuff. And it's really just to get myself out there and force me to practice to see kind of just what kind of fun I can have with it. It's not something that I'm looking to change a career or do anything like that, but just to have some fun. I think one of the aspects I wanted to do was kind of like remixing worship songs and stuff like that to have like a different aspect of the electronic music scene. I don't know. It could be cool. It could be crazy. Who knows what it's going to be? But I will probably share links with that as I'm doing it. Just again, like I do with everything else, right? Getting comfortable with discomfort, putting myself out there and going, let's figure out what's happening here. So yeah, that's kind of just like a quick snapshot of what's been happening. A lot of things, but it's like I said, it's been so great. And yeah, just so thankful you're tuning in. If it's your first time listening, thanks for tuning in. There's a lot more episodes, a lot of interviews, a lot of talks, but today I think is an interesting topic that came to mind when I was looking at doing this episode. So I had this idea of, usually when Kayla's out of town, it's when I record these because it makes it a little easier because I have the space and she works from home. And I was like, you know what? I guess I'll record one this week. And I didn't really have an idea for it initially. And last night I wrote some things, and this morning I just kind of finished it. The thoughts kind of came flowing through, and I said, hey, I think there's something here that I know helped me as I was writing it, just thinking through these things, and hopefully it can help you as well. Just a way to think about things a little differently. It's this idea that things can be a slow change. We can have the best intentions in a situation, but sometimes we let things slip just a little bit. And in that slip, this idea of giving an inch, right? We give just a little bit there, and then all of a sudden things start to get wider. We think the slip is just going to be a little bit. It's no big deal. I'll get back on track. Everything will be fine. I had this idea with training for Chicago. I felt like it was in a really good place, except I didn't have the discipline I probably should have had. And maybe I skipped some runs here and there. Or maybe I didn't go as hard as I probably should have in some runs. And, runs weren't that great, but was it because it was in my head, or was I not pushing hard? Like what was going on? And there'd be days where I'm like, you know what? It's bad weather today. I don't need to run. Like, I'm fine. I'll tackle it tomorrow or tackle it the next day. And these attitudes can really multiply quickly, right? When we have these thoughts, when we have these actions, they can take over the situation where it seems like it's a little one-off thing. All of a sudden it starts getting exponential, it starts compounding, right? And we start feeling that additional pressure that comes with it. Then real things happen that actually shake things up. What we've been doing is just slight shaking up, kind of getting away from our pulling into our comfort rather. But then something actually comes up, and then we have to say, are we prepared? Because we didn't actually have stable footing to begin with. I had that during training. I fell during my training and I had to take 2 weeks off of running. And, if I had a better base before then, would I have recovered better? Would have been faster, would have not been as much of an effort when I got back to it going, oh crap, now I'm like racing against the time for this race to say, am I going to be ready when it comes race day? If I would have had that better base, if I would have had that more discipline early on, would I have been in a better situation? Or maybe we take it from a life standpoint, something there. I had a friend tell me about this parenting story that she had with her daughter and watching TV or screen time. And this may be something that you parents relate with as well, is she didn't want her to be exposed to as much screen time. So her and her husband kind of changed their routine, changed their habits, really to get into a better example of what they wanted for their household and for their family. But then this one week came where everyone was sick. Everyone wasn't feeling well. Things weren't here. And she had mentioned, she said, okay, one time isn't going to hurt her that much. We're not feeling well. It'll be fine. Let's just give her this one time. And the next thing she knew, it was a week's worth of those one times. She told me, we let it creep in and now established a new normal. Maybe it's not around things that you started to do, but maybe the things that you haven't. Right? Maybe those situations at work or in your personal life where you decided not to stand up or maybe to bite your tongue in a situation, right? It's not really worth bringing it up. So I'm just going to let it slide. And then it happens again and it happens again. Or maybe it's something a little larger. And you're like, well, I didn't say anything then, so maybe I shouldn't say anything now. Again, that crack in the door, just the little inch that we give tends to widen with each time that we compromise in that. Now, through that confirmation, compromise, this is how we show up, and this is the perception that others have in us and how we interact or, again, show up in those situations. It's easy to think that the one-time thing isn't that big of a deal. But as I said earlier, these things can really compound in our lives. What seems one, we basically become numb to the situation and then repeat and repeat and repeat. And next thing you know, you're looking like, where am I? I think I've talked about this analogy before, right? Like if you're on a boat, you just 1 degree difference off of track. In 100 miles, you're nowhere near where you expected to be. And that's what happens in these situations, right? We have the good intentions. We're doing the things. It's like, hey, just one little blip, but we don't make it back. Or we start sacrificing, hey, I blipped, I came back, I'm good. But then you blip a little further and maybe you don't come back as far. So you're still separated. You're just playing this diagonal game. And we have this desire to drift into areas into comfort. And it can take a lot then to pull us away from that. It's easy to get sucked back into that comfort, but to separate ourselves from it, that's when we start seeing like, oh wait, this is challenging. It's so much easier to fall into it than get out of it. I've talked about my personal struggles on this podcast and as a guest on other podcasts, but it really started as this won't hurt anyone. It's only affecting me. No one needs to know. This is the situation. And it turned from that to something that completely consumed my thoughts and pulled me away from what mattered most. It had an impact on my core, and everything that kind of came out of it. It is really apparent that, hey, something's going on. You can put up the facade, but it doesn't last forever. It breaks down for sure. But being disciplined and holding ourselves accountable is hard. It's never fun to look in the mirror and put that ownership on ourselves for the mess that we got ourselves into. Now, these things don't always have to be a life-altering or like an everything blew up kind of situation, but it starts in the little things. You know, like I talked about with running, how many times do we wake up maybe just a little tired and think, do I really need to go to the gym today? Do I really need to go on that run? I could just do it tomorrow. I could do that. Or perhaps you're driving down the road and you see that Dunkin' Donut sign and you're like, I mean, it's only one donut. Now, don't get me wrong. You need rest. There needs to be rest days. And I love donuts. I literally went to the UPS store today, and as I rode my bike there, well, Kayla's bike, and I'll get to that in a second because that's an interesting segue. Again, wrote the notes and then had this situation. Saw the Dunkin' Donuts. I was like, ooh, I should get a donut. I was like, no, I got to get back to work. But this idea of I could have let situations kind of anger me and kind of pull my whole day off track. So it's related, but not related. I went to grab my bike off of the rack. It's back there. You guys can see if you're watching the video. And the tire was completely flat. It's like, that's kind of weird. Try to pump it. I could hear air coming out. I'm like, all right, the tube's blown. And I'm like, I'm frustrated. I'm like, what am I going to do? I needed to return stuff at UPS. I need to do all this stuff. And I was like, calm down. There's another bike. Poof. Got a solution. We can move forward. But I think in certain circumstances, we can let these little things fester in us and we give it just a little bit of attention, a little too much attention. And all of a sudden it blows the door wide open of frustration and anger and let it go into my entire day of like, now everything's behind. I can't do this. I can't go there. I can't do these things because of this one little instance. We gave that threshold of frustration and anger and fear just a little bit of room that it just blew up and spread. So in these situations, I don't want to negate the idea, but the point is we need to treat these things for what they are and understand if it really aligns with who we want to be. Are my actions, are the things that I'm giving life to, does it align with my morals, my goals, my expectations for myself, my relationships? There's a reason why some of the most successful people are where they're at. And that's because they had discipline in their lives that helped direct them and direct their steps. With that discipline, it can be used as a filter or a gauge to understand what those little moments represent. When we separate from these little things that can be just giving an inch or going a little bit out of the stretch, depending on our morals and our goals, we can say, hey, I'm not aligned. I need to get back in. I need to bring it back. I need to close that door. I need to not let that space be there. Now, those inches that we provide can be more than the things that we do, but they can also be the people that we let speak into our lives. In a culture that's continuously look at me with social media and that sort of thing, it's easy to have the wrong influence get in your head and lead you astray. Chasing after the limelight, chasing after this fame, if you will, to be noticed, to be heard, whatever the case might be, we can start listening to voices that aren't actually guiding us, again, back to our morals, our goals, our expectations, all of those things. It can easily separate us from that. You know, not to be political shortly after the election, but we saw that with this recent election campaign, right? The onslaught of negativity that was being thrown around was able to turn people and their well-intentioned situations into people that no one wanted to talk to because they got way down the path of this hate and this negativity, right? When we consume that type of information or vibes or surround ourselves with people that speak negativity, hate, slander, it can really affect us. And we can start to believe these things. And even if we think we can handle that and be like, hey, I can segment, I can compartmentalize, that was a tough word, compartmentalize those ideas. If we continue to be around it, it's going to absorb in. You're going to start doing that, right? There's always that, you're a reflection of your friends, of like the people you hang around with are the people you will turn into. It rubs off. You have this familiarity that you kind of lean into when you're around those kinds of people. And words can hurt. So when we have that negativity, we have that, it's going to hurt you. And while we can try to have our focus on something greater and not put our hope and our identity in what other people say about us, it can still hurt. And that's when it just breaks you down a little bit. This is something that I honestly struggle with more than I'd like to admit. I try to live up to being a great follower of Jesus, a great husband, a great son, a great friend, a great manager, a great employee, just a great person, to be able to support people and do these things. And I know that while I still have opportunities to grow, I can always grow and I can always learn. Sometimes people just say things that knock me down a step, make me feel like I'm less than, that I'm not worth what I believe to be worth. In those moments, I have to decide how I'm going to let that affect me. And if I give into that inch, the door will slowly continue to be open, and I'll fall prey to those negative thoughts of unworthiness. If I continue to read the comments or interact with people that have that negative tone, what's going to happen is I'm going to start feeling those things that maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm the one that's wrong here. The things that I'm thinking aren't actually correct or valid, and maybe I'm not worth anything. Maybe I am less than. And it's so easy to buy into those lies. So while the words hurt, I have to put my trust and hope in something that's far greater. I have to sit on these truths, like I talked about, have that foundation of who I am and what my worth is. No matter my past, there's a renewed hope every morning. But again, this starts with having the right mindset and understanding that if I give that an inch, if I give that space in my life, it's so easy to just blow out of the water. It's going to blow up if you give it that space and let it continue to creep in. You've got to address it. So what are you giving that space to? Where have you left a door cracked that slowly starts to widen? Is it because you're leaning into your comfort zones? Perhaps maybe it's the things that you're consuming, or it's just one-time situations. Or maybe it's the people that are speaking into your life that are pulling you away from what really matters. See, most of this conversation, I've mentioned the negative side of what giving an inch to, but this really is a two-way street. What if we changed our focus and leaned into the things that actually better us? Give space to continue to grow in those areas. Connect with people that actually speak life and encouragement into us. But not only that, they also provide correction to make sure that we are staying towards our thing. Here's my goals. Here's my expectations. Here's where I want to be. Please let me know if I'm getting off track. But do it in a way that says we're moving together with this process, not that I'm less than, or I'm worthless, or I'm useless, or whatever the case might be, that we're going at this together and we're making a difference together in this situation. That's the whole point of being friends, is showing that correction, saying, hey, I'm noticing this, you need to course correct. This is the path that I see what's going on. And because of X, Y, and Z, I don't want you to go here. I want you to stay here. Give those people the space. Keep the door for them. Now, again, when the door's open, things can happen on both sides, but where are we focusing? Where are we putting our attention? That's what's really going to matter. So let's look for those moments. Let's be those people for others that lift others up and speak life. Be willing to call out situations in your own life where you see that slacking, where you start to see that you're giving an inch to negativity, to hate, to worthlessness, to anything that is taking you away, taking your eye off the prize. Be mindful of that, of this is the way I want to go. It's not just a one-time thing. It will continue to rot you from the inside out. I'm telling you. Be disciplined to know that every step you take matters. So where are you heading? You can reach out to me everywhere on social media at flores.ron. Subscribe, leave a review for the podcast. It's much appreciated. You can learn more about Hangry, wearehangry.com. But thanks so much for joining me today. Remember to keep running with purpose, one step at a time. See you next week.